Last of Us Part 2 Remaster dropped. When it did, Part 2 went back to its default price of $39.99 and its sales only went down to $29.99, all while Part 2 Remaster was sitting happy at $49.99. Their games are so expensive that they need to hit near 10 million sales for one of their big titles to even be worth making.
Really what this is a way to continue profiting off of things that they've made that were good and that people loved and cared about without really having to continue on into the future doing much work. I'm trying to think of all of the reasons I'm pissed about this. There's a lot. Subscribe!
Companies like Sony often have a problem. Their old games competing with their new games, and like Sony, when your brand is built off those old games having amazingly strong IP, well, you end up losing a lot of money because your average sale price plummets. And today's story is Sony's attempt to fix that problem. You see, while headlines of scalpers buying up PS5 anniversary editions were dominating, something else happened, something that very few noticed. See, the State of Play announced Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and when I reported it, I tried to save you some money. What you'd do, right, is you'd buy the original complete edition of the game, and then you'd hand over your $10 whenever the remaster comes out, so you end up paying less. The bad news is that Sony were onto us. The good news, well, I'm onto them, and I've got backup from today's sponsor, which is dead handy.
Horizon Zero Dawn. When did that game release? Like 8 years ago, 2017? I don't understand remasters. I guess fair enough if it's 8 years old or 7 years old. Maybe that's about the amount of time. But I just don't understand remastering games as much as they've been doing it. Remastering, didn't they remaster Last of Us 2, which came out in 2020? Doesn't it already have a remastered version? I think it makes sense with like Dark Souls. Like Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, I think could use a bit of a remaster. But some of these games is like, I just don't really understand the point of remastering it. And the amount of remastering that they do now, especially Sony, I feel like is sort of egregious and unnecessary because you're literally just sort of taking the game and modernizing it a little bit, giving it a fresh coat of paint. And I don't get it. I think remakes can be interesting if they're taking a game that people liked or had flaws and then like making it something new. I think that's cool. Remasters give the same energy as Disney live action movies because some of them I think are valid, but a lot of times it's just like, why are we remastering something that's like 4 years old? Also, to be clear, the thing is like they're very low effort and then they ask for the same amount of money. They're just sort of reskinning a game, updating it here and there, doing some optimizations. But ultimately, just using the base of something that they've already made and then charging full price for it like it's a new thing, which it is not.
First, the PS5 shenanigans. Sony doubled the price of Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition. Yep, 2x. It is now $39.99. It used to be $19.99. Of course, if you add in the $10 upgrade price, and you get $49.99, which is the remaster's RRP. And it is a bad look. Zero Dawn Complete Edition was part of the PlayStation Hits collection, and every other game in that collection currently retails $19.99. And to make things feel worse, none of this was talked about publicly in any way. You just would go onto the store and find that that's what the game would cost, and you wouldn't really know any better. What they did here is abundantly clear. It is an artificial price hike. It's just them trying to collect more money. And the thing is, it could actually get them in some trouble. You see, recently Sony stopped selling digital games in retail stores. You can no longer buy game codes. The only place to get a digital PS5 game is the Sony store. And when this happened, regulators in the United Kingdom were actually suspicious. They thought that this could be getting in a monopolistic direction, so I have to wonder how they feel about this. Sony using their complete control over the sales of Zero Dawn digitally to artificially hike the price. Because the fair market value per Sony of this game was $19.99, along with everything else in the PlayStation Hits collection. And if the upgrade is worth $10, which is what they charge for it, then surely the fair value of the new version of the game is $29.99. Of course, it's not. That's why the price increase here with the original Complete Edition feels a little bit artificial. Thing is,
it's not doesn't feel a little bit artificial. It is artificial. I don't play Horizon Zero Dawn, so I guess to me, I don't really care because I didn't play that game and I wasn't going to play that game most likely. I think that part about it being sort of monopolistic is definitely a big deal. And I think that this is not just a problem of Sony. In the future, I think it will become a problem with a lot of these different retailers of games, a lot of these different game developers. I don't feel like if I could just play almost the exact same game for, you know, what was it, $29.99, $19.99, whatever it was, I would just play that. What the fuck do I need the remastered version for if it's the same? Is it not on Steam too? For a remaster especially, I'm not paying your stupid artificial price hike. I am not encouraging crime. However, if it means that much to you, shrudge, I don't know.
This is far from the only strange thing that's happened. Next, we gotta take a look at PC. Well, the good news is us PC gamers have not missed out on the fun, and it's actually more aggressive here. You literally cannot buy Horizon Zero Dawn on Steam, Epic, or standalone. There is only one way you can buy it, and that is the new Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered Bundle. Yeah, that's the only way. That, of course, does include the current Complete Edition and the remaster, and it costs $49.99. Now, there are still cases where you can buy the original Complete Edition because those game keys exist. Sony can't just go and delete all of the game keys that are being sold in other places like, say, GOG, but all of this reveals exactly how they think and their aggressive approach to pricing. Of course, they know that.
Well, bundling in general, I think, is always just it is almost always used in the most deceptive, schemy way. Overwatch got in trouble for this. Do you guys remember? Overwatch got in trouble for this because they had bundles of sets of skins or whatever, but they also had individual pricing, but you couldn't buy the individual item. And they got in trouble for that because it's up. If you want, I don't want to pay $30 for the skin bundle. It's probably way more. It's probably more like $50, but I don't want to pay $30, $50 for a skin bundle if I literally just want the little gun charm on it. It's so stupid. But bundling is always used in such a weirdly, aggressively way. It's so gross.
Their games have got strong long tail sales, so remakes and remasters can keep the average sale price high for longer and longer. But of course, on PC, it is just a little bit spicier. 170 countries just lost the official ability to play this game because all PlayStation games on PC will have the PSN element for linking your PSN account to get trophies, friends lists, and that sort of thing. The PS blog confirmed this, and it does mean that people in the 170 countries are left out. And even worse, they kind of won't be able to get it at all because the original Complete Edition doesn't exist. It's only in the remaster. Now, yep, there is the saving grace where game keys for the original exist. You can buy those on GOG or others, but at its core, we're seeing how PlayStation intends to bring the PlayStation model done on the PlayStation Digital Store over to PC and to have the level of price control that they are used to having. And
that's so... I'm trying to think of all of the reasons I'm pissed about this. There's a lot. Really what this is a way to continue profiting off of things that they've made that were good and that people loved and cared about without really having to continue on into the future doing much work. This, to me, is an effort to optimize their laziness and be predatory on games and IPs that they've made that meant a lot to people. And it's just really, really gross. It's really foul. The corporate greed and laziness of this makes me feel sick. It is true what was said in the beginning of the video, which is that Sony really, really relies on their older IPs. They really rely on games that they made previously. But the problem is that they don't really seem to be making anything that people are super in love with. They got like out of 10 games that they release, how many of them are really bangers for Sony? Like 1 or 2, it seems like. I think like it's really not much. This really does seem like an effort to attempt to like do as little work as possible and still make as much money as possible by being predatory. That's so foul.
It's from here that their strategy begins to become clear. To check in with other games, Helldivers 2 took a beating for PSN, but it's now recovered. It's got recent reviews at 81%, and the latest patch has actually led to a higher baseline in players. Ragnarok got slammed for PSN launch, but it's recovered. It's at 77% now. A modder even made a mod, a tool to circumvent PSN, and it surged so quickly in popularity that he took it down because he was afraid of retribution from PlayStation.
Jesus.
But of course, check in with the graph and you can see negative reviews are slowing faster than the positives are rising. So that does mean it's getting more and more positive. And then Ghost of Tsushima, well, it's at 92%. That is barely a dent, and that's a game that needed PSN for multiplayer that released when the whole story was exploding.
The thing is if they put these really predatory tactics on these games that people really like, this is sort of the result, ultimately, because people want to play the games. They want to play the games with their friends. This will be the result. People will be upfront very, very angry, but if they like the game and they want to play the game, they will play the game. If it's a good game, they will. And so it's such a specific tactic to do that on, I think, those two games, because people really liked those two games, obviously, even though they were mad about the corporate greed part of this, right? But people really, really like Helldivers. I have a lot of friends who still play Helldivers quite a lot. And so it is kind of something where it just becomes like we all just have to accept it because that's the we're given, you know? Well, I mean, I love the game and it's a good game and like, yeah, it's super duper predatory and really gross and up, but like, I want to play it. So I just have to accept it. And then eventually, you know what the beautiful thing about this is? You know what the beautiful thing about this is that over time, the community will police complaints about that behavior. Anybody who bitches about this in the future and don't like this, the community will police it. It's like, well, that's just how it is. What the fuck do you want? Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. Just play the game or shut up.
Now, all of this shows something. It tips us off to their real strategy. So let's understand what PlayStation are actually doing. A lot of enthusiasts are pretty angry at PlayStation. It could be the things I'm talking about today, or it could just be not as many of the Japan-feeling games that they used to have in the past. Those are the people who, of course, will be loving Astro right now. But no, their entire plan is to hit far beyond the immediate enthusiast audience. That audience does not matter. That's why we've not seen them yield in PSN and PC. The thing is, they feel like they have to. Their games are so expensive that they need to hit near 10 million sales for one of their big titles to even be worth making. The Insomniac League made this abundantly clear. Spider-Man 2 needed to sell 7.2 million copies at full price in order to break even. At full price. That's a game
that's absurd.
It's been out for almost a calendar year, and since then, it's been on sale just 2 times. And there is in fact a sale on right now, but it's a tricky one. It is a sale, you can get it cheaper, but the only thing on sale is the Digital Deluxe Edition. It's 28% off, $57.99 in the UK, so it is cheaper than the regular edition, but it still is pretty damn high. That's another part of their strategy. Do a sale, but only on the Digital Deluxe Edition, so they don't have to decrease the price all that much. Even take Ragnarok. Ragnarok released summer 2022, it's had 8 sales on PSN, and its deepest has only been down to $39.99, which is still a pretty hefty percentage of the original sale price. Now, their current strategy is to expand via film and television. It's a major thing. Herman Hulst has talked about it, and it worked incredibly well for The Last of Us. And if things had went right, it would be working for the Horizon television show that would be further along than it is right now. Basically, the director for that got fired this June, so they're undoubtedly pretty pissed off about that, but still, the strategy hasn't changed. And it reminds me of CD Projekt Red. They had a bit of a problem. The Witcher TV show, even though it's extremely mid, has Henry Cavill. It blew up interest.
It has very sexy famous man. Very good. Otherwise, not very good. I don't know. I've never watched it. But otherwise, it's pretty big. But it has sexy famous man. Very, very good show. 10 out of 10.
When it did, Witcher 3 sales surged, but the game only cost a few quid, so they didn't really make as much money as they could have. So what I decided to do was look at the price history of Sony's most recent analog, which of course is The Last of Us. The Last of Us Part 2's deepest sale was down to $9.99 USD as recent as April 2023.
For Part 2? That's crazy.
3. And if you're a show viewer right at the end of Season 1, that would have been awesome. Soon after, though, Last of Us Part 2 Remaster dropped. When it did, Part 2 went back to its default price of $39.99, and its sales only went down to $29.99, all while Part 2 Remaster was sitting happy at $49.99, with its deepest discount being $39.99.
Why did they need to? I don't understand that at all. Why did they need to remaster something from 2020? From 4 years ago? There is no non-corporate greed justification for a remaster or something like that.
And that means that other than the base product RRP, this is exactly the pricing model that they are doing with Horizon. And that probably means they've got data to support this pricing model working. And well, if you want, you can go and buy The Last of Us Remastered, the PS4 near launch title, for $19.99, which of course is what it is in the PlayStation Hits collection. The whole point of their full remake is that the full remake, The Last of Us Part 1, sells for $69.99 right now, which is more than Part 2, and even on sale, the Part 1 remake is $39.99. Now, the reason why I went through all of this is because business has got many different facets. Now, obviously, we are customers. We buy games. That's the bit that we care about, and in so many cases, we're used to buying games on Steam. Steam is one single marketplace, and it's an absolutely ginormous one with so many games, and that means that if you want to get visibility, you gotta hit the sales button. So we're used to sales happening way faster and way deeper than is normal on some other platforms. It's basically a race to the bottom. Sony, though, do not do that. As you can see today, they diligently work to keep their average sale price high. And there's another company who does it a lot more than Sony do, and that company is Nintendo. Nintendo are so confident their games are so damn good and so damn unique that they just don't do deep sales at all. Now, obviously, a retailer can do whatever they want, but look at the eShop pricing. Tears of the Kingdom is $69.99. It has never been on sale in the eShop. It's always been that price. They've only discounted Super Mario Odyssey 5 times in the eShop since 2021. And even then, that's only been from its current price of $59.99. Yeah, no default decrease in sale price, from $59.99 to $39.99. And then there's Smash Ultimate. It came out in 2018. It has shifted over 30 million copies, and on the eShop, it has never been discounted. Never. Conventional wisdom says that old games are less valuable. Nintendo disagrees, and they still sell millions of copies of their games. This is...
I love acknowledging the greed and shittiness of Nintendo. I think they do make intellectual properties that obviously people love. You know, people love Nintendo games. People love Pokemon. People love Zelda. People love Super Smash Brothers. People love all of that shit, right? Obviously. But the greed of Nintendo is so incredibly, like, so foul. I mean, like, and it's so crazy because there's so many Nintendo, like, cockriders who will 100% all of the time still defend Nintendo until their dying breath, when they are one of the greediest companies ever. It is insane the level of loyalty Nintendo has garnered from their audience because of the nostalgia of the games. And the thing is a lot of the games do have good quality. Obviously, Breath of the Wild and what was the other one? Tears of the Kingdom were fantastic games. People loved those games. I didn't play them because, honestly, the reason I didn't play them was because when they came out, or especially when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I kept having my chatters at the time because I was in Pokemon asked me every single day to play them, and so then I didn't because it pissed me off and annoyed me and I didn't feel like it. But I have played the more recent Mario game. I've played, obviously, the Pokemon games on Nintendo, and they are good. I don't think Scarlet and Violet is good. No one will ever convince me after the amount that I played that game out of pure copium and desperation that that was a good game. It has good elements to it, but overall the actual game itself is made like absolute and is absolutely in no way worth $60 or anything more than $60. It was not worth $60. That game was not well made. It looks like it runs like shit. And honestly, a lot of the Pokemon for that generation were also kind of ass. So, like, I just, like, they do make games that are absolutely worth the price, but also people will take slap from them regardless.
Is exactly what Sony wants, but it perhaps might even be more than what they want. It may also be what they need, because their games are so stupidly expensive. Just think of the Spider-Man example. So it's no wonder then that Sony's PS5 Pro has no disc drive. They want digital because that gives them full price control, and if you do buy physical, you will need to buy their upcharged $79.99 disc drive. They are just trying to...
It's $80 for the disc drive! I thought that was going to be like 15 bucks, bitch. What? Do I play any Sony games that I really care about? Are there any Sony games that I play? I don't think so. I don't think I've really ever played many. I have not played many Sony games. I don't think I'm going to either. If there's a Sony game coming out, assume that I'm not playing it, especially if it's like a PS5 exclusive. I don't have that. I'm not playing that.
Play a different game to the rest, and this makes it clear. The Insomniac leak tells us that Spider-Man 2 was budgeted at $270 million, with a cost overrun taking it to around $300 million. And the thing is, they expect that to go up. Part of the leaks included slides from what appeared to be an internal postmortem, where Ted Price, Insomniac's CEO, had... disturbing things to say, worrying things to say for the health of the industry. One slide read, "We have to make future AAA franchise games for $350 million or less." But worse, it continued saying this. In today's dollars, that's like making Spider-Man 2 for $215 million. Yeah, inflation's rough. Of course, it cost $300, so pretty disturbing. And assuming that these targets won't happen and they're talking about $350, well... I think we're going to get close to $400 million. I mean, there's a slide that projected $385 million for Spider-Man 3 and $305 million for Wolverine. So even...
I want to say something controversial yet brave. I don't care about high fidelity graphics. And if this is a result of the obsession with these high quality, high fidelity graphics, stop. I don't care. Please just make a good game. If it means that shit costs less and it actually ends up being better and being higher quality, I don't care. If I can see the peach fuzz, stylize it in a way that is good to look at. I don't want these high quality graphics if it means that these games are going to go in this direction, if the monetization has to go in this direction. I don't want it. I've spent 20 hours in Card Shop Simulator. Is it a good game? Am I going to play it forever? No. Does it have good graphics? No, but it works and it's fun and it doesn't require that much of me. And that's more than I've spent on a lot of games. I've not spent 23 hours on most games in my Steam library. I return games all the time. I don't care. But my point is that if it is just a good concept that is enjoyable, we don't need high fidelity graphics. I'm sick of this obsession with the AAA games where it has to be like, I need to be able to see the green flecks in her hazel eyes. If it means that these games are going to cost $400 million to make and require this level of predatory monetization, the graphics, I don't care. Make something stylized that's good and that works and that is fun to play. Who gives a fuck about any of it?
With 120 million a game being chipped in from Marvel, those numbers are insane. Spider-Man 1 took 2 years and 100 million to develop. Peanuts compared to its sequel, and part of the leaked slide is just a brutal line that says, "Is 3x the investment in Spider-Man 2 evident to anyone who plays the game?" I think to most of us the answer would be, some budget increase is evident, but not triple. Those are yesterday's numbers.
And Nintendo, I used to, not anymore. No. I think the first one already looks so good. The extra graphical quality really means nothing to people. People just want games that work. Can we all just agree on that? Like, whoa, all this budgeting, all of this obsession with like, why the fuck do I need to see all of the individual leaves on these bushes in the back here? What do I need to be able to see that in high detail for? I want to have fun. I don't care if it's stylized. I don't care if it has a message. I want to play games that are fun for a reasonable price. Thank you.
A comment, what do you think The Last of Us Part 3 will end up?
That's also true. You're literally zipping around on your Spider-Man web. What the fuck do you need to see all those leaves for?
Costing. You see, Naughty Dog have got a new fantasy IP to launch first. It'll probably fit the end-of-generation sort of swan song game that has actually kicked off many of Sony's biggest franchises. After that, for the PlayStation 6, they've got to do The Last of Us Part 3. That's something that will be holding down The Last of Us as a brand, as an IP, also the television show. So if that's 400 million, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. And if your games cost that much, if you need to sell 7.2 million at full price just to break even, and I suppose that's not even including payment processing costs, well, you know it's a high-risk game. But of course,
like, why can't I see the texture on the Spider-Man suit from that far away? What do we need this for? I'm getting so mad, I'm stuttering. There is currently motion blur on the screen right now. Why do we need this level of graphical quality?
it is what we see is Sony fighting where they are strongest. They're going for cultural dominance, something that Microsoft just does not have whatsoever. And that means that every Sony game has got to be an event. Those are the jewels in their crown, and ideally live services will keep them a little bit more healthy in between.
And you know what? This game got its ass beat by Baldur's Gate. God, I remember playing Elden Ring and having random people, first-time chatters, coming into my stream and being so mad that Spider-Man lost. And it was like, obviously it lost. It was going against Baldur's Gate 3. What did you think was going to happen? So Baldur's Gate 3 cost $100 million to make and sold 15 million copies. Spider-Man 2, what was it, 300 million to make? And it sold 11 million copies. It was a fraction of the cost for more sales because they just made something good. Just make something good. Please, I beg you, please just make a good game. I don't need all this. And you back yourself into a corner because now people just expect that from your games. It's absurd.
They look at Nintendo. They see that Nintendo do not discount their games because they're goddamn Nintendo. You cannot get a Nintendo game elsewhere. They do not need to do a sale. You will buy Smash, and over 30 million of you have. Sony want the same. They want it to be so that you cannot get a game even close to The Last of Us Part 3 on the Microsoft console, or whatever the next Ghost title is after the one they've just revealed. That is what they are doing. They want it to be at the stage where Microsoft literally cannot compete, in the same way that nobody's able to compete with Nintendo. And if
Yeah, but you're not Nintendo, baby. Nintendo gets to be Nintendo because they're Nintendo. You don't get to act like you're Nintendo, and you're not going to be Nintendo. You're just not. We're just not really. We're comparing apples to oranges. I mean, really, we're comparing like a Walmart purse to a Louis. You're not her. You're not him. It's like the same thing I say to a lot of content creators. I want to be Asmongold. You should not be like Asmongold, because Asmongold gets to be like Asmongold because he's Asmongold. You're not Asmongold. You got to do yourself. He's already Asmongold. You can't be like him because he already made his spot. Stay in your lane. Remember who you are. Remember your place. You're not Nintendo. You don't get to be Nintendo now. Nintendo's Nintendo because they've been Nintendo, and they're going to continue to be Nintendo. Stop.
Microsoft's usual is anything to go by, Sony will crush them. But people will not be happy for it because they will be paying more money. If you end up...
Thank you for the sub. I want to look at one more thing. I think I can just Google this on screen. I think it'll be fine. How much was Elden Ring to make? It made 200 million to make for Elden Ring. How many copies of Elden Ring have sold? I am having a good day. 25 million. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. This is absurd. This is stupid.
Paying $79.99 for The Last of Us Part 3 on launch, I would not be surprised. But as they say, content is king. Cultural value.
And these games don't even play stable at 60. No, that's such a good point. These games don't even play stable. They do not hit a stable 60 FPS without having to run like DLSS and all of this money for games that are not even optimized well enough to play on the console they are made for effectively.
Value is an important thing. It's a little touch of the meaning that we want from things, that we want from a television show that's fantastic or a game that's fantastic. Microsoft struggles to do that. Sony is able to do it, but at absurdly ballooning costs. Those costs probably won't fall to pieces, and that means Sony needs to innovate not just by pumping out games, but also by innovating on pricing strategy, which is exactly what we've just saw them do. And on the topic of price, even though there's been nothing but bad news, Ubisoft's stock just surged. You can watch the next video to find out why.
I guess what we learned today, support indie developers that is good, that is reasonably priced, and are not trying to price gouge you and create monopolies for their games. I understand if Sony games mean a lot to you, and it is your choice how you spend your money. However, voting with your wallet is a thing. Don't support this. This is like active poisoning of the gaming industry. And the thing is that these games, a lot of them are not even really that good. I observe Ghost of Tsushima and all those like classics, right? Those are really good. But a lot of the shit that Sony puts out is just straight up slop. Remasters of games that are barely out. All of this shit is just so foul. A dev that puts out something like Concord, I just feel like maybe we shouldn't trust them with the future of the gaming industry. If this is how they're if this is how they're innovating their pricing strategy, that is super gross. We have to have limits to how much our nostalgia will define how we spend our money. And I think this maybe is one of them. And you can always watch somebody else play these games, especially if they're story-based games. So that's it. That was awful. I hated that.